remember we asked you to everybody to investigate a road safety topic and produce something for that, and they were absolutely wonderful. I've gone through them. You have not disappointed everybody. Well done. So thank you very much. And I gave some feedback in the comments to everybody, and I could have given prizes to everybody in this group, I think, that submitted, but I have narrowed it down. We said we'd give 3 categories of prizes. One was technical accuracy, one was creativity, and one was most engaging. So let's start with most creative, and I'll give a shout out runner-up prize to Carl on that one for the use of Dilbert in the in his little cartoon there on slip lane stand-up angles. So yep, got me with the Dilbert cartoon on creativity. But the winner, we can't go past John Govich for motorcycles and roundabouts, and this video is something you all are going to have to watch and be entertained by, because the use of a plate and associated mats and motorcycle Lego or little model motorcycles and wet conditions in the shower, and it was just all amazing. I loved it.
Don't give it all away, Ken. You're giving away the whole story.
It's like a little, okay, it was that's a preview into it. Brilliant, entertaining, informative, and ticked all the boxes there. So that's the prize for most creative. We'll go technical accuracy. Etienne is the runner-up in that one. And a lovely one there on landscaping and road safety implications. Very well put together and thought through. And I like the fact that there was a second version with added comedy available there. So I won't give away that one, but that was excellent stuff. But the winner on that one, Andy High, for barriers, categories of road safety barriers, just a very well thought through, concise, technically accurate fact sheet. This one, there was about 10 at least that I could have gone to. The technical accuracy was very very good there from this group. Just a random special shout out prize for James for his barriers, curving next to barriers, and the thing that made me chuckle was his use of very special engineering reasons for why the curves were in there. That was a running theme throughout the sheet. Very special engineering reasons. And the most engaging, the winner on this one is Kevin with the flying Y. Why the Y intersection? And yes, the example of the flying Y intersection, which I'd never seen, and just happened to duck over to France to get a video of that for us, pre-prepared maybe 10 years ago, knowing this course was coming, and had some video footage and a good explanation, and posed the question, why the Y, which was very good and very engaging. So as I say, well done to everybody there. Loved some videos there. We had 3 little pigs in there from Jody, and we had Lisa with a lovely video of herself there, and everybody with great stuff. So thank you, entertaining. And Kathy, are we going to make those available so everybody can see what the assignments were?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just in the process of loading them up to a folder in Moodle. So hopefully before the end of this session, that'll be all there, and you can. Some people are asking for that not to happen. If you don't want your masterpiece shared, then maybe do let me know. But it'll be good. It'll be a great folder, and yeah, just outstanding creativity and work from everyone. Thanks so much for getting involved.
Yeah, and the reason we do this one is just to try to cast the net as wide as possible on road safety topics, or cast a net out there, because there's no way we can cover all these within the short course that we have. And as many of you know, your whole career, you're sort of delving into different new topics and finding out more information and the like. So, just set one of those randomly assigned ones. We could have had thousands of different topics that then people can have a look at. So thank you again for your work on that, and highly entertaining and informative and creative. So well done. Okay, so today we are going to talk about two more road user groups, road safety auditing, thinking about these road user groups. So we're on to the two-wheeled variety, so cyclists and motorcyclists. And there's an assignment after this, which I want to spend a little bit of time at the end explaining to you, but you're going to do a little bit of practice road safety auditing. This is not the one where you're going to get out on site, but we've got you pretty close to out on site. You can't beat actually getting out there, but we're continuing to try to replicate that as much as possible. So we've got some 360-degree footage for you. You've got a design, you've got your virtual reality goggles, which your phone can go in, and you will be able to sort of pretend you're at the site. And I'll be interested in your feedback as to whether you think it is getting closer to a substitute to a site visit. I still don't think we're ever going to substitute that, but so we'll talk a bit more about that and give you some specific information at the end. Okay, I better share my screen, and of course I'm going to be asking you questions as we go. Let's start with cyclists, shall we? Right, Kathy, hopefully you can see that.
Yes, you're all good. We got a glimpse at your inbox there as well, Ken. That was exciting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
2,000 unread emails. That's good. All right. So each of the road users, we follow a similar theme. So Austroads actually a while back set a bit of a road safety audit course syllabus, what should be covered. So we tend to try to follow that, and we tick off different road user groups in terms of the requirements of that road user group for safe travel. So requirements of cyclists for safe travel, technical information regarding cycle paths, shared paths, different cycling facilities, then into those common road safety audit issues for cyclists, and understanding the basic terminology and treatments for cycling facilities. Now, I probably should be saying people who ride bikes, which is apparently the term we're meant to be using these days, rather than cyclists, to more humanize people who ride bikes rather than cyclists. But it's entrenched in me to say cyclists. So forgive me if you're one of the people who's pushing for that term to be used, and I'm using cyclist. Okay, so it's just some general considerations I like to put out there. Separation's a really important one for cyclists, especially where there's any speed of vehicles around. And clear sight lines, space to ride, surface. Speed maintenance is an interesting one, and I will delve into that and how that specifically relates to road safety auditing, because it's often seen as more of a connectivity provided, attracting cyclists rather than a road safety specific concern. But there are certainly some times when trying to create facilities that mean that riders can maintain a certain speed can be connected to a road safety issue. Connectivity and information. So some general principles there. But as a road safety auditor, we just need to think like a cyclist. And some road safety audits certainly will actually be a cyclist and ride through the existing conditions and try to imagine the design. Or maybe when it's just been built, you might like to ride through it. Obviously, especially if it's a dedicated cycle facility, this can be very helpful. But asking yourself those questions: would I feel safe using the road? If I turned here, would a car see me? Would I be in the dooring zone if I rode through this area? So it's just like that pedestrian intersection example we did, where we started putting ourselves in each of the road users' shoes or on the saddle and riding through and walking through and driving through and making different movements and trying to imagine any road safety issues for that particular user. And what I like to do auditing is put that 8 to 80-year-old hat on and think, are the facilities here going to be safe and accommodating for the 8-year-old and the 80-year-old? And if not, are we sort of very clear to not make this encouraging of these different people who ride bikes at different sort of realms, and making sure that they're really not for those road users. Now, there are challenges, obviously, with people who ride bikes, because we have this huge raft of people who ride bikes. We've got the 8-year-old, the 80-year-old, the commuter, the recreational cyclists, the mammals, as we call them, the middle-aged men in lycra, the training cyclists. We've got all sorts of things, and then emergence of more even delivery cyclists, even sort of cargo, with cargo bikes and the like. So it's a challenge to try to design for all of these, but thinking through that a little bit and looking at what is going to fall out as a safety issue is important. Now, as compared to some of the other road users, so pedestrians, I'd say, and motorcyclists, there is just a mountain of information out there on cycling infrastructure and challenges. From an auditing perspective, there is information in the existing Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6 and Part 6A for cyclist safety, and the checklists there. In the checklists and different lists in the New Zealand document, there's information on cyclists. There's a document out there which not many people use or know about, but it's this shared path audit guidelines, which was a VicRoads document, a little bit old now, about 10 years old, but still contains some pretty good information dedicated to those shared use paths, those separated facilities, and how to audit those. Oh, there's a wally that's up here. Don't forget to count your wallies. There's lots of different resources, and we've put a lot of these on your memory stick and into the resources in Moodle, so you can have a look at them if you're interested. This one's bike treatments at pedestrians and bikes at roundabouts, car dooring treatments, so those areas where the doors are there. This is strategically important cycling corridors and a bit of thinking around that. Bike lane design guidelines from the City of Melbourne. There's quite a number of those that have appeared in recent times. And internationally, there's just a deluge of it. The Dutch are very much onto it. The Crow manual, which many of you have probably heard of or seen, or maybe have a copy of next to your bed. It's the cycling infrastructure design Bible, really. A few specific documents on auditing cyclists. So that one from California. And there's a few other interesting ones. This one's from Transport for London. And this is another US one. So we put them all in there. You can have a look at them, and no doubt there's some New Zealand specific ones that I'm not aware of, but it's luckily an area we don't have a huge amount. We don't lack the guidance and the knowledge, and we're continuing to work on. Okay, when you're road safety auditing, and you're thinking about cyclists. This is sort of the absolute 101 cycling infrastructure audit, longitudinal grades. Now, it's a bit of an existing conditions one, that you might notice it in the existing conditions, and they don't appear to have any plans to change it in the design, or you might be doing a pre-opening / post-opening road safety audit, and these are the things you want to pick up. Now, this is an interesting one because it's fairly obvious as soon as you see that. And this photo sort of demonstrates it well, but it's one that often sort of slips the mind of a road safety auditor. And interestingly, I've done 2 legal expert witness cases on incidents that have involved this, and the Road Controlling Authority has been found or has had to pay out in one case, and the other was a development. It was in a shopping centre, and they also had to pay out. And sort of in my statements and when questioned about it, I said, well, you know, I've been running a road safety audit course for many years, and it's one of the first slides I put up for cyclist safety when you're road safety auditing, and so we need to start thinking about are cyclists going to be in this area and ensuring that any drainage facilities are catering for them. The developer one was a bit of an interesting one. It was a legacy item that was there, big longitudinal grate right in the middle of the pathway. But the thing that got them was that they did some significant upgrades to their facility to create a lot of bike storage and encourage people to bike, which is great. And we really, you know, I really commend them on that. But then thinking about, are there any, you know, safety issues out there that we should be trying to address it within our property? And unfortunately, somebody went into that and was seriously injured. Okay. And yes, as I said, there's some larger ones out there. So just certainly something you could very much drop a wheel into. I'm straight into the examples here. So another common road safety audit finding is where there's a new cycling facilities going in or new cycling treatment. So this one is adding some different cycling storage boxes at the front, some threshold treatments to try to slow turning riders, some green paint to warn road users. The issue, sort of as an auditor that the team picked up, was that they were proposing cycling storage boxes at the front of the queue here at this T intersection. And when you get out there on site, you discover that they operate the signals with the right turner out and the left turner in at the same time with a left turn arrow. So what we had there was that the cyclist would come down, you know, this is what we imagine. They'd store there to go forward, so they get a bit of they're in view, the drivers can see them, but unfortunately then the green arrow would pop up. Now this became quite a challenge to risk rate. We had a bit of debate as an audit team. How do we risk rate this? And we sort of agreed on I think we agreed on a bit of a medium risk, because we decided it was pretty unlikely that a driver would not see this rider that's sitting in front of them. Maybe there's a bit of interaction as they come up and they sort of slot in and the car's going. So that was our sort of concern. We thought that a road rage style incident is more likely there, where there's a cyclist sitting in front and they've got this storage box and then somebody wants to turn, and that may create some, dangerous maneuvers. But sort of trying to think that through was a challenge. I think there's a question there: is that a left turn only lane? No, it's a straight and left. So that adds a bit of comment. If it was a left turn only, then yeah, I'll show you later. You've got some options about either putting the cyclist into the middle or thinking, about a holistic treatment, which is very challenging in some of these constrained environments. All right, it's time for you to put your auditing hat on and start typing in a few issues you see. Well, prize, if you can tell me which country this is. First person to pop that in can have a prize. And there we go. I'm going to go with Wales. So it came in thick and fast there. Kathy, I have to work out who was first on Wales. UK, not quite specific enough there for me. Correct, but not sure if anybody speaks Welsh, but I'm pretty sure that translates to cyclist dismount. Right. All right. Let's see. Now you don't do existing conditions audits in New Zealand, but we're looking for safety issues to inform us for any future ones. But let's see. Chuck them in, and I'm going to give one prize for one specific one, and then and then there's quite a number of things here. Okay, geez, okay, we've got an eagle-eyed group here, as we knew. Okay, so we've got possible concerns around the use of the sort of tactile ground surface indicators and them being slippery, or are they the right way around? We've got people pointing out the fence here as a sight line constraint, and I think that's a valid comment. I'm not sure who first. Again, Kathy, this is your work cut out for you today. The drainage grate. I just talked about longitudinal grates, didn't I? And there's one right there. And it's not a longitudinal grate for anybody riding their bike on the road, but it just happens to be right on the bike path as a longitudinal grate. So good spotting for the people. Well, there's a few people who got that one in there. So yeah, they're all good issues. We've got what else have we got? Sight distance, potential see-through effect. So I like that. That effect that we've talked about can be present for cyclists as well. We've got surface issues. Okay, potential snagging of a handlebar on the light post, so hazards within the path of travel there. Wonderful stuff. Great group. So I want to touch on a couple of these that I find interesting. So sightline constraints there. And let's talk about the fence first of all there. So we've got, obviously, the cyclists sort of come up to this and can't see, and so maybe slow down. So maybe it's not too bad, or maybe they sort of continue through a little bit of speed. There's also the fact that the drivers won't be able to see, and any pedestrians that are trying to walk up there are also subject to cyclists being struck. And so they've gone with the cyclist dismount. And I have a particular hatred for that sign for a number of reasons. I've used it in my time as well, but you kind of know you're not addressing the issue when you're putting that sign up. And the height of ridiculousness is when we get to this scenario here, and we popped that one up on LinkedIn as a safe system snippet a while back. But this is where we get to the point of there are issues here, and the sign is really not going to do it. It might make the the traffic engineer feel a little bit better, that they've told, and if they don't do it, it's on them. But we can't take that attitude. We should be looking to fundamentally alter this. Luckily, we're now more and more into a position where we are providing the cycling path, the shared path, with priority through, and we're making the vehicles be the ones to give way, and that certainly adds to that speed maintenance, connectivity, and certainly will alleviate some of the safety issues, because cyclists are just not going to stop in these locations. They're not going to stop, dismount, walk. It's just crazy to think that, and so we need to start designing and accommodating for it. So opening up those sight lines often, means that there's not that requirement. You're not as concerned because everybody can see each other. The appropriate vehicle can give way. Here's an example of a road safety audit report I did with some colleagues on a very large new subdivision and being built. They provided a shared path right up onto property boundary, which was an interesting way to go about things. Probably if that had been audited at an earlier design stage, maybe there might have been some commentary around that. But there were these situations where high fences and garages, and so you're going to have the cars emerging. So obviously cyclists coming down here and vehicles emerging. It's an issue. So in that situation, we would love to talk about providing that space, but cutting back the fences down so there's open sight lines is a rectification measure. We call it a supporting one because it's not eliminating that issue, it's reducing the likelihood that it'll happen. This was a really interesting one where this is another window into road safety auditing. The council that was the local government that was responsible for this whole subdivision had approved the plans. They'd approved, so the developers' plans. They'd approved it was part of their I can't remember what they call them, but they're the standards and guidelines for subdivisions like this allowed this. And so what they did is they got this audit report and they handed it back and they said, listen, that's part of our structure planning guidelines or whatever it was. And so can you remove that out of your audit report, please? That's it's not what we're looking for out of this report. And of course, you get in this odd situation. They're your client and they're paying your money to do this report. And in the end, of course, we say, no, sorry, that's a safety issue. And yeah, we know it might cause you some challenges, but we believe this, could contribute to injuries out there, and we're leaving it in. Anyway, so then they had to go around, and it caused a lot of trouble. They had to go and pay for the rectification and the reducing the height of the fences at quite a number of properties where this specific scenario occurred, and then they had to go through a process of altering that in their development guidelines and the like. But it's a responsibility we have as road safety auditors to stick to this, to move it forward. Most of you have been in this game passionately advocating for road safety, good practice your whole careers. So I'm preaching to the converted, but just remember that you will, if you get it out there doing lots of audits, and especially if developers are involved, in this case it was the council that was asking for that, you will be asked to alter your report for one reason or another. And this is where you've got to stay true and stick to your guns. You may add commentary around different ways to address the issue. So you might try to help them in that sense. But the fact that you've identified it as an issue, that's it. I have a colleague, Jamie, who's going to present the next session, who has this sort of comment that always resonates with me. He says, you know, if I've seen it and I've thought about the crash, I have a personal obligation to put it in the report. And I think that's a good way of thinking about it. And it shows that you're not clouded by the other challenges of any project. You're just the safety voice. Kathy, I'll pause there and see any questions or comments have come in at this stage. I've sort of been.
Yeah, there's some comments around the UK uses cyclists dismount signs like confetti, maybe a little bit like that picture you showed earlier.
Yes.
And Lisa brought up in Queensland, they had banana rails to keep cyclists from darting onto the road, and not sure if they're in use anymore. So she thinks maybe it was 2002, 2008. And I've just looked up banana rails, which was interesting. And yeah, no longer in use. They were bright yellow railings shaped like a banana to slow bikes down. But Mark's saying perhaps the risk is the cyclists will run into the bars doing themselves a serious injury. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's right. There's been a lot of evolution of how to treat a cycle facility on approach to a road, and certainly the use of chicanes and bars and those sort of things is very much being phased out, and either looking to provide the continuity for the cycle facility or providing essentially a splitter island like a road and clear visual guidance for the cyclists to understand that they don't have priority. But yeah, the bars are not.
Yeah, so Kevin's responding that they're still used in Napier.
Okay. Napier, the home of the banana. Right. Let's talk a little bit about the surface. And of course, the surface issues are going to be something for a safety concern for cyclists if they strike the surface issue. But what I want you also to think about as a road safety auditor is the positions that cyclists will go to avoid surface issues. And they will often ride in areas that are more dangerous in order to avoid surface issues. And that can include surface issues we have put in, rumble strips across the lane or like they may move around. So just thinking a little bit about that as well. Here's a little example of, again, us really needing to think about cyclists. So interesting scenario. And again, as a road safety auditor, you will no doubt encounter similar things here. We've got, at some point in time, the lane, the lane alignment has gone wacky here. So you'll see that this lane goes into the footpath. This lane goes into the left there, but they've got to come out. So as a road safety auditor, ideally when they were doing whatever intersection upgrades caused this or the like, or they were adding the leg to the intersection, that would have been picked up and hopefully we could have adjusted things and got things in line. But nonetheless, so we will be expecting sideswipe crashes to be occurring here between vehicles, because this vehicle taking off from the lights or coming through, and then this vehicle trying to come in. So we've got, and that's going to be, I would traditionally say, lower risk, because side swipes are lower severity. It's certainly something you don't want, and the frequency of it occurring will elevate the risk a bit, but the lack of severity of it for vehicle-to-vehicle interactions is less. But the real danger here, the road user that's going to cop it worst, is the cyclist. And you can see the cyclists come in here. This is the classic of forget about the cyclist through the intersection because that's too hard. But the cyclist navigates their way in here, and then as that interaction happens, it's the cyclist that'll be the worst one off there. And so we try to obviously think about ways to get cyclists through these areas in a better manner, and maybe it's sometimes utilizing some of this area, ideally getting it right in the start and having cleaner straight through alignments. The other one, in a similar fashion, we've got our lanes lining up, at least on this one, but we have that merge point where the cyclist, so the vehicle is coming along, a parked car, but if a cyclist's in here, the vehicle's main focus is on being able to merge in. And again, we have some challenges there. Dealing with these can be hard, obviously, but thinking of them as a road safety auditor, providing a little bit of advice is beneficial. Okay, more questions come in. I see some flashing lights on my screen.
There's just some friendly banter about leaving Napier out of things. Give-way marking signs are a good way of showing priority, not always considered for cycle paths for some reason. And in the UK, they used to leave a curbside rumble strip gap.
Oh, yeah. Great for the cyclists to go through. That's nice.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, roundabouts. So roundabouts have been a challenge for us catering for cyclists for a long time. And there's a few reasons for this. The first one is this sort of look but fail to see philosophy. And some of you have probably heard it, look but did not see, look but fail to see. And in fact, if you Google that, or Google Scholar that even better, you just get this deluge of human factors reports, behavioural science reports on the phenomenon of look but fail to see, which essentially is the act of the driver maybe coming along here, looking over this way, cyclist in clear view, cyclist proceeds into the roundabout and the car goes in and strikes the cyclist. And the whole sort of premise around it, and all the literature and everything like that, it goes into this immense depth on the reason why that driver looked, and in their field of vision was the cyclist, but they did not react the way they should have. And there's all sorts of discussion about threat theory, the psychological or unconscious bias of looking for a car. That's what they're looking for, and so that didn't register quick enough that they also have to stop for that road user. And then it goes into people talking about the saturation levels of cyclists to alter that mindset so that when they look, they're looking for cyclists as well. It's fascinating stuff. You will certainly find yourself in a rabbit warren of information if you delve into that. But there's a few things from an infrastructure design perspective we can do to try to make things a bit clearer and try to lessen that. The first one, and Austroads went through a phase of promoting this as your absolute go-to, was the encouragement of the cyclists to centre themselves in the lane. The reason for that was that there is a bit of a theory that they're offset from exactly where they're looking, even though they're there, but they're not quite expecting them in that position, so that may factor into it. The second reason for that claiming the lane argument that's put forward is if the cyclist is sneaking around. I should delete. I'm getting too much. If the cyclist is sort of kept very close to curbside, there is a temptation for the car to go through as well, and then having us sort of squeezing together. The claiming the lane is what they talk about. And so there's, well, Prize, if you can tell me what that symbol is. First one to tell me. Oh, Andy's onto it quick. Sharrow, that's right. Doing very well there. So yes, it's called a shared arrow, and it's trying to represent a space where both cyclists or people who ride bikes and cars would share that same space. And this is the design guidance for low speed roundabouts. Try to get the cyclists to claim the lane in the middle and go through. Now, are you going to send your 8-year-old out to claim the lane over a large 4-wheel drive or a truck? Probably not. So we're probably not going to. There's certainly certainly when I ride, I do claim the lane, but are we really encouraging cycling in that perspective? But it's something for us to think about. It is Austroads saying that it is safer to do that rather than try to keep them as close to curbside as possible. But of course, I'll come back to one-lane roundabouts for what we generally now think of as the really higher line safe system way of doing it, and some of you are probably very aware of the Moray Street roundabout, or that Dutch style roundabout with the outer circle. 2-lane roundabouts are hugely problematic for cycle facilities. Certainly, as a cyclist coming up through here trying to do a right-hand turn, you're in huge trouble trying to navigate through that. And also, even just going straight through, there's the potential for dynamic visual obstruction, crashes, because you've got those multiple vehicles, one turning maybe, and one coming up here, and the cyclist going through here. So cyclists sort of entering the roundabout, seeing the turn, and then other vehicles. Lots and lots of problems, and the added challenge of higher speed through these. So take this one all the way back to a planning perspective and try to create your cycling routes away from these major traffic routes. But we do find ourselves with lots and lots and lots of legacy challenges. There's more innovative concepts, more of that attempt to try to provide those facilities. These are some concepts developed by some of our designers, which we put out there. This hasn't ever been built yet, but there's the Queenslanders are sort of putting this into their guidance as well to try and encourage this. But the idea being there that maybe for the minor leg approach, that the cycle path can have priority through and connect back, and providing these staggered clear areas slightly away. So a right turning cyclist could come in here, go up, pause, cross, pause, and off they go. And here's the sort of mock-up of the Moray Street roundabout, which is based on the Dutch annular roundabout design. This one was a little squarer in its sort of turn points rather than a big circular one around it. But there it is, built and performing and operating really quite nicely. And so this is a really highly aligned safe system treatment for getting cyclists through that one-lane roundabout, as opposed to requiring that claiming of the lane, which Austroads had in there as the way to do it. So again, as an auditor, you're providing advice maybe on possibly delving down these treatments or thinking about cyclists and how they're going to go. Any further questions come up there, Kathy?
We had a comment about the Sharrows. They're being installed in Hamilton City in their CBD. I think I've got that right, Janine. Just let me know if I have it. And that's about it. I'm just waiting to hear back from Kevin on a roundabout that he's mentioning. But
Okay.
that's it for now. Yep.
Yeah, so the sharrows are an interesting one. You really do want to ensure that the speed of vehicles will be low if you're putting those sharrows in. So maybe the need for local area traffic management. There was, I did see sharrows put in on a sort of 50, 60 kilometre per hour point on a road, which really I think is causing us a bit of concern if you're going to get cyclists claiming lanes at those sorts of speed. It was a bit of an odd scenario, but anyway. Again, like as an auditor, you've got to think, try to weigh all of this up. This was an interesting design and brought up a few little concerns as a road safety auditor, but they're trying to provide a separated facility here for the cyclists, so some curb separator on the approach. And then for the right-hand turning cyclists, they've created this little spot for them to store at that point, and they can go through. Now, this provides some certain advantages. It's, an area for the cyclist to store. I do sort of get a little bit worried about the vehicles potential swept paths around there, the angles that the cyclist has to sort of look back, and they're taking in a lot of information. But people are trying things. I think the actual term they decided to use for that was a mammal pouch, which I thought was quite hilarious, because they were saying, well, this is really, we don't have many cyclists on this highway except for the lycra-clad middle-aged men in lycra training, and to sort of provide that facility for them. But often they're in packs, and I'm not sure that too many mammals would fit in that pouch. Here's an interesting one, again, sort of showing the design to reality challenges that are often faced. And this one, another 2-lane roundabout, and we've got the cycle lane. It's really just the shoulder comes up, but then a dedicated sort of cycle facility for the riders going straight through, and so they're separated from all the vehicles in the roundabout, and so it all looks fairly good, well catered for. I mean, the right turn has still not got anything particular there. And then for this one, this is how it was then constructed. And I think as a cyclist, and again, you as an auditor, you put yourself in the cyclist's shoes, I kind of feel that you're going to get to that and think that that's the footpath, and then, okay, I'm got to go through here. So the whole purpose of that facility, the extra money and the investment, I don't think it's going to get utilised a huge amount. Yeah, they've got the cyclist only sign, but it's a little sign there, and you're riding along and off you go. So I think that, just a nice small bit of green paint up there like that would have done quite a good job to show that that is an area for cyclists. And here's an example of sort of use of green paint for directional purposes as well, to try to encourage a cyclist to go a certain path. Now, that's not the original reason for green markings. I mean, green markings are originally for the conflict point between vehicle and cyclists, in order to highlight and warn the driver a bike rider could be at this location, so be extra alert. But it's slightly evolved to now becoming a encouragement of cyclists in a specific spot if you're trying to encourage them to go a specific way or ride in a particular position in a lane. Kathy, anything?
Some comments are about the previous one to that would always be covered in glass and gravel. Roundabout on that crest, that's poor practice. Not wide enough for pedestrians and cyclists, the previous slide.
Yeah.
And Daryl wants to know, what's your view of the classic trolley problem? Does increasing the safety of a majority justify a small increase in the risk to the minority?
Such a good question. And the easy answer, no, you try to get the everybody to have improvements in safety, so you don't have a road user that loses out as such. But yes, there are practical challenges on that, and yeah, I do favour the safety of the majority, but do always look for measures to try to ease the risk for that minority, and try to maybe provide facilities or restrict that minority. But yeah, that's a debate for a coffee or a beer or something, and a long discussion. Okay, dooring. Dooring is the term that's sort of raised its head over the last decade or so, as it's been termed that opening the door in front of a cyclist and the cyclist striking the door, or striking or avoiding and falling into live traffic. And that's more that's where more of the injuries have happened, in the secondary strikes, rather than that initial door hit. But the door hit itself has provided quite a bit of serious injury. So another big challenge, and certainly one that you'd see in your big cities, of how do we cater for both parking in a strip shopping centre and vehicles and cyclists. And it is challenging. Here's another example. This one particularly challenging because this area is a clear way, so the vehicles are not always going to be there. Sometimes this whole area is a through lane. So the idea of doing some likelihood reducing works to maybe mark out cycle areas, well, during different points in the day, that's right in the middle of a lane. So extra challenges associated with these. Here's one that's not a clear way, so the starting of marking of bike facilities. But this still presents us with that dooring challenge. There's really no protection. And if you're going to do this sort of stuff, you might want to add additional line marking in order to separate. But physically separated bike facilities are the go. They are a higher aligned safe system treatment. They reduce the exposure to that crash. But some of the challenges are around the entry points for vehicles coming in, and vehicles coming out. I'm just going to pause for a second there, Kathy, and see if there's any challenges, and also turn off the baby monitor, which is got my young child screaming into it. Excuse me.
I'm in the middle of eating some lunch, so that was good timing. Thanks, Ken, but he might not have heard that. No, he did. Damn it.
No, all good. Sorry. Yeah. So the separated cycle facilities are interesting ones. Great improvements come with a number of challenges we need to work through, and auditing is certainly a great way to sort of highlight these issues. That turning in the idea of disabled parking spots and ensuring that they are correctly catered for, the loading and unloading areas of goods for cafes or the like, and vehicles coming in and out. So let's have a chat then about shared paths crossing roads. As I mentioned, there's been this elevation of the idea that cyclists could have priority across roads, or pedestrians. Shared paths could have priority across roads. Traditionally, very much the car focus of ensuring that the vehicle traffic can continue unabated. but now we've evolved. So here's an example of a shared path crossing here in Melbourne, and it has priority. So essentially what they're sort of doing is treating the path as its own road, and it's the priority road. So this becomes like an intersection. We've changed our signage of recent times, so now it looks like that. And here's one from the driver's perspective, Kathy taking the photo in passenger seat. And you see, you're approaching along on your road, and you get to a point where it's really just an intersection, but instead of a road crossing, it's a shared path. But you really want to make sure that these are clear, that you're still going to have problems with drivers, see-through effect, overshooting. So things like raising these, making it very obvious and clear, it becomes quite important. Here's the that other one I was showing from the cyclist perspective, and you get that nice, clean, clear run through, which is good. Yeah, other little bits and pieces I think are just nice little tweaks on existing things. So one-way slow points, and providing what we call a cyclist bypass, or the traditional local area traffic management involves squeezing down the cyclists into the same area as the vehicle. So a chicane, a local roundabout, and often one-way slow points. But thinking about providing that bypass for cyclists can be a really elegant little tweak on a local area traffic management solution. If I jump into the shared paths, unless there's any questions that have popped up for now, we can absolutely do a road safety audit on a shared path facility proposed. We do, also existing ones. And as I mentioned, there's this guidance available. So these ones are great. You get out there, you ride them, and you're looking at a lot of the obvious characteristics, the widths of the path, obstacles, hazards, but you do also think about the horizontal and vertical alignment, surface, and the way that the paths intersect as well. So those intersection principles to think about in shared paths, and Kevin's award-winning fact sheet also talks about why intersections on shared path interactions, and that was great to see. So have a read of that when you can. But you do want to provide that clear priority, good sight lines, advanced warning, the guidance, and then ideally getting to that 90 degrees, so we don't have that Y intersection challenge and confusion of priority and sight line, being able to see challenges and speed reduction. So here's an example out of one where it's all a bit unclear, which one's got priority, and then certainly vehicle bikes crossing. So some of our basic sort of road safety engineering, traffic engineering design principles for roads for vehicle-to-vehicle intersections can flow through to path intersections. I don't know why we abandoned it on path design so often. Another example here where we've got a Y intersection, and from the top you see the path comes down here. This is the actual main path. This is an adjoining path, and so you get this interesting conflict there, and it kind of looks, this one actually would have priority, but it really doesn't quite look like that when you're on the ground.
Can rider versus rider collisions, where does that sit on the severity scale?
Yeah, good question. So certainly not, you're not getting those forces of the cars as such. And most of them, I mean, we definitely know of serious injuries, but most of these sort of path-related cyclist-to-cyclist crashes are not in the high-level serious injury. They're more the minor injury crashes. We don't want them. The more serious ones are the leaving the path, hitting fixed objects, falling into creeks, hitting rocks, and those sorts of things. So more that abrupt stop rather than the collision. Same with cyclists to pedestrians, and this one's the walking advocacy groups, which we work very closely with and we support, have a big gripe of cyclists and pedestrian shared paths because of that, the dangers to pedestrians. We know that there are some of those incidents. They're usually in the minor to medium severity. You do occasionally hear of a fatality, but they're sort of few and far between. So from a severity perspective, it's not as bad, but nonetheless, we do sort of acknowledge the challenges that faces from a usability and attractiveness perspective.
Ken, there's some commentary about mammals and the high speed that they travel at, and I know my husband's one of those. So there's just some comments here about that rider-to-rider collisions have caused some serious injuries in Auckland, especially when the speeds are quite high.
Yeah, that's right. That's and we've had some incidents like that here as well. Yeah, it becomes very challenging to try to deal with these.
Just a question about the cycle lanes and maintenance issues. If a sweeper, for example, can't fit in and the maintenance has to be done by hand, so do you factor that in, of a risk of it not being done as regularly?
No. I mean, I think that's just a little bit too long a bow. You may make some like random commentary within, the general comments of your road safety audit about ensuring that it's maintained and the like, but we're kind of dealing with that first immediate issue in the road safety. Now, remember that the practical challenges of a project still remain. So we might provide that advice, and then they're going to have to work through how to maintain the facility and ensure it's safe. Okay. Thank you. I better keep moving along, eh? Yep. Lots of examples here of different issues for cyclists, drop-offs, smaller drop-offs, but nonetheless, you've got to think about dogs, people walking dogs, kids on the path, all sorts of things that might make a cyclist have to avoid, and even hazards close to the edge. So there's quite good guidance out there on sort of what's generally appropriate and what reduces risk, and how much we can reduce risk. Thinking about areas sort of within the general path that could be a hazard at night as well, and of course debris and the like. Fencing and catching a foot peg, a pedal or a handlebar. So there are specifically designed cyclist-friendly fencing. So just ensuring that is being used is important and something to pick up as an auditor. The back of barriers often causes issues for riders. Again, another one where we've been doing some different investigations of incidents, which you complement them on thinking that a barrier should go in there to separate the path from the vehicles. But you do need to think about the back of the posts for a rider that may strike that. And there are ways to treat that. You can put a back-to-back W-beam system on there. You can do post capping with, there are lots of post capping products available. So there's things that can be done and suggested as a road safety auditor. There's some back-to-back examples, and cyclist friendly fencing also. So we talked a little bit about putting hazards intentionally in the path, and this is not great. Think of that at night. It's not going to be seen. the chain's not good. Somebody's probably put that there to warn other cyclists at night that there's a chain here. So we want to try to make sure we're not doing that. I think this is quite a good example as it comes up on your screen here of there is a cable stay there, so holding up a power pole. Ideally, we wouldn't have that in the middle of the path, but if it has to be there, good line marking, some advanced warning, flexible bollards with retroreflective marking. We're in a better situation here. And Austroad's guide, certainly the new one, is going to have these thematic road safety audit sheets in it, which we came up with to provide that guidance on. If you're asked to do a cycling audit, like a road safety audit with a cycling focus or a motorcycle focus or a pedestrian focus, what are some of the key differences and how do you do it? So we put those into your memory stick, your USB, and onto Moodle, so you can read those in your own time if you'd like. They've got some more information. Okay, Kathy, anything come up that I need to deal with? Are we going to have a quick break?
We are going to have a quick break because okay, this is about is it compulsory to wear a helmet on a separated facility in countries where helmets are compulsory on the road? Yes. And yeah, I believe Mark sent through the legislation on that, so I won't read all of it just at the minute, but I think the short answer is yes.
Yep.
But yes, let's have a quick break. And so what do you say, 2 minutes?
Quick break, because I got to get through motorcycles and then we've got to explain the activities.
Yes, great.
2 minutes.
Right. 2 minutes. Thank you.
You get a chance. Thank you. So I'm just reading through some comments there. Yeah, some good comments on the details of some of the examples and a few other things. But so thank you for that. It's a bit of a challenge in the online not to you want to have a bit of longer conversation on different topics. Nonetheless, let's keep ticking along here. I'm going to share that, and we're going to jump into motorcyclists. And again, one where the New Zealanders have done quite a bit of work over the last decade at least in terms of upskilling engineers and the like, traffic engineers or designers in the needs of motorcyclists. And that's been a wonderful thing. But some of this you'll probably have seen through different either presentations or through the Making Roads Motorcycle Friendly documentation that New Zealand has. But we're going to again talk about the requirements of motorcycles for safe travel, technical information regarding the infrastructure, common road safety audit issues, and the basic treatments and terminology. It's a motorcyclist 20 to 30 times more likely to be killed or seriously injured, depending on which sort of bit of research, in a comparison between passenger vehicles. So certainly most vulnerable road user from that perspective. And here are the documents sort of available to try to concisely talk about infrastructure for motorcycle safety. So this is the VicRoads one, which I developed with some colleagues back quite a few years back. That's actually the second version of it. And the New Zealand one, which came along a little bit later, but that's the one that you can find on the Waka Kotahi website. And it's replicated in a few others. Oh, that's a bit of a sneaky wally there, isn't it? I wonder if that was even counted in our wally count. I've talked about these before with many of you, but as an auditor thinking about sight, surface, signs, strike, and speed for motorcyclists, the 5 S's. So can the motorcyclist be seen? Is the surface appropriate? Are there signs to warn, inform, guide? What will the motorcyclist strike, or what will strike the motorcyclist? And what speeds are we traveling? You're all quite good on the risk, probability times consequence, the chance crash will happen, how bad it's going to be. And as we categorize these, we're talking about the site, the surface, and the signs are the chance that the crash happens. The strike is that consequence when it does happen. And the speed is both. Less chance that the crash will happen, won't be as bad if it does. So go through these in a little bit more detail than I have in others, but I'm going to move quickly through this in order to give us time to give you that assignment. If you're looking at the size of motorcyclists and thinking about the issues there, obviously even small cars and motorcyclists, we're dealing with a much smaller size. We add some safety margins there for motorcyclists. First one to pop into the chat, why those safety margins are quite large. Any ideas? I'm just going to pause for that. Yes. Andy's going to get that unless somebody else puts something in. Yeah, okay. We will give it to Andy. He clarified it. Initially talked about wobble room, but I think, and then clarified it with lean angle. So Kevin was closely following with lean angle. But yeah, it's all about sort of that lean angle as well there that you need to take into account as a rider goes around a curve. But anyway, the small size, obviously the motorcyclist can be hidden by things that we generally wouldn't call a sight line impediment, such as a small sign, a pole, or the like. So having a think about some of these is important. You can see this tiny little sign can block out, quite a bit of that motorcycle. And thinking about where motorcyclists will be positioned at different points for the dynamic visual obstruction. So vehicles blocking sight lines to motorcycles. Nice to see the high vis vest standing out there. Now, providing motorcyclists with great advice on what's coming up is important. I mean, it's important for all road users, but here's another example of really assisting this rider in knowing what they're about to encounter, and really reduce the likelihood of crashes based on this. These signs are used in a number of jurisdictions and are starting to get used in New Zealand, as I understand, and they're trying to represent a specific curve type, and this is a curve that tightens up. Now, does anybody know? In fact, I'll give another prize out there. The person who can tell me the sort of official name for this curve, the curve that tightens. I didn't even finish the question, and Kevin was on to that compound curve. We might have to put a hold on prizes for Kevin for this session. I think he's going berserk here. A compound curve is what we call it. Some people, colloquially call it a spiral curve, but it's a compound curve. Double radius curve, some people would also call it, but it tightens up on itself. Now, this is a particularly hazardous point for a motorcyclist. It's bad for all road users because they come into the curve, but four-wheeled vehicles often have that overcorrection luxury. They can lose a bit of traction on a tyre. A motorcyclist will inevitably go onto the wrong side of the road in this location, or if it's the other way around, into the roadside. They're sort of locked in. And here's an example of now this is a crash analysis one, but 4 motorcycle crashes outside of curve, radius 200, 250 curve initially, tightens up to a 100, 117. A bit of a bell mouth here with a bit of gravel wash on the road. Just a recipe for disaster, and coming out with 4 motorcycle run-off road crashes at that location. And this one, again, shown before, but the idea being that vehicle 1 turning in, vehicle 2 coming through. Vehicle 2 is more often than not the motorcyclist, due to the fact that they're smaller, they're easier blocked by, sightlines are blocked, and the vehicles turn in front of them and we get that crash. Identifying these as a road safety auditor, I mean, actually this crash is common for cyclists as well when you've got the cycle lane going through there, and for passenger vehicles. Motorcyclists seem to come off worst in these because they're often traveling at higher speeds through there. So things you can do on this to try to alleviate. I mean, there's a lot of different ways we could try and treat this, but one of the cheapest and easiest is to move your hold line back a little bit. I mean, this is the biggest keep clearing I've ever seen. I mean, they're obviously trying to alleviate traffic congestion with the out one, but you don't usually do that. Setting it back, opening up sight lines a bit. You could look at linking your signals here with whatever signals are up here queuing. You could try to slow speeds of the vehicles through here. Lots of options. There is that intersection actually in real life. You can see that here the truck, the vehicle there, and you've got the Pajero there doing its turn. It would have no idea what was coming up there in that second lane. Again, yeah, just talking a little bit about the motorcyclists being a little bit hard to see at intersections. Thinking about that in your auditing. And surface challenges. So certainly the lean of a rider and the 2 small contact patches means that any surface issues are far more challenging. We really do like to think about the surface issues on the approach to a curve and through the curve. Once the rider's out, surface is still important, but these are the really hazardous points in and through. I mean, I'm a licensed motorcycle rider, but I would never call myself a motorcycle rider because I'm just scared to get out there really after spending so much time dealing with the issues and incidents. But I do get some experienced motorcyclists tell me they don't like the specific lines on these, so we might have to fix those. But we do want that consistent, good surface. So all sorts of challenges out there, though, that depressions in the road can mean that a rider may just lose their traction as they sort of bounce through a depression, especially on a curve. Different potholes and different things, especially around curves, are challenges. Just showing lots of photos of roads that are absolutely stuffed there. Thinking about gravel wash, mud that washes out onto the road from work sites, construction sites, and thinking about that for riders, scooter riders, cyclists, motorcyclists, all are going to be more susceptible to those surface irregularities. Thinking about patching and maintenance works and how they're done and where the seams are in the joins, often we're finding that the patches will start to break up around the edges, which is right in the line for a rider. So ideally you do full width patches, but there's some cost challenges there. And this one, as a rider comes around on this very popular motorcycle route, they encounter this. So we need to try to get them right in the first place so they don't break up like this, but warn riders until it's rectified with lots of signage, lots of warning. Steel plates get slippery. Looks very obvious to us with this nice photo, but you think about that maybe at night when the rider's following a truck or something. Maybe it's raining. They may not see it until they're on it and hitting it and sliding. So they can get skid resistant surfacing. You can get higher visibility surfacing, and it can be a bit better. This one's interesting. Looks like the pins are coming up, the bolts. And as a road safety auditor, at design stage, you can try to predict some of these challenges, especially one that I see come up a bit is the service pits are going to be in the circulating carriageway of the new roundabout because they don't want to move the services and the like. So thinking about that, it's not a great spot, obviously, for the service and can cause trouble for motorcyclists especially. And this one's in Rotorua, I think. So obviously the surfacing, you can do lots of things, water blasting, different surface treatments over the top. Here's one which is, improving the surface skid resistance on the approach to the intersection, through the intersection where conflict is more likely to happen and riders are trying to avoid or brake hard, but not so much on the bit once they're in a lower risk area. And sealing right up to the barrier is desirable. Certainly a rider going too fast in, hits an unsealed surface, they really have to pull the bike upright. That's their only option because the traction is lost. So sealing right up to barrier for motorcyclists on popular motorcycle routes quite important.
Can comments come through about an interesting issue that was found on a popular weekend ride around a peninsula? If ridden in the anti-clockwise direction, motorcyclists are always on the inland side, therefore subject to debris from cliffs or steep driveways sitting on the shoulder or the lane.
That is, yeah, there you go. That's a very interesting specific there. Yeah. You could have a road rule clockwise only for motorcyclists. Yeah, good one. The type of curbing used, obviously, the more mountable the curbing, the better for motorcyclists, although we do need to use different curbing in different scenarios for drainage and the like. So, but if you can make it more mountable, it is better. Here's just a little video, and there's not much. I think the roundabout here is quite good, quite well highlighted, but it shows how small a lip can destabilize a rider. And then they've gone into the grab rail there, and yeah, but just those very small surface changes destabilize riders. Now there's inherent challenges with motorcyclists. Very small little mistake there, and everybody's making mistakes, but you can see how it can start to elevate. Luckily on that one, obviously no injuries, but you can think how bad that could be. There's another little one from New Zealand there of the use of PVC piping for the grab rails. I like it. I don't know how they hold up in UV light, but good on you. And nice little speed cushions there. Surface, so line marking, large swathes of thermoplastic line marking become slippery. And I can almost guarantee if you get in doing lots of road safety audits, you will see a design that'll come across to be audited where they want to paint a massive stop sign or give way sign right at the intersection because there's been crashes, overshoot worries. And the idea is nice, but the reality is we're now providing a big skid resistance issue or a slippery area right in the point, it's really critical for a motorcyclist. So that's, and then there's different big line marking challenges. Line marking has to be out there. It's so critically important. Just think about where it's placed and trying to ensure that we're not putting it in areas where a rider will be braking hard or leaning. Yeah, so the particular motorcycle warning signs are available. Very effective in highlighting a specific issue to a motorcyclist. Motorcyclists are very aware of this. So I encourage the use of that sign. I encourage it particularly where you've got an individual issue, not so much just a general high risk area. So that was one of the Motorcycle Advisory Council, Motorcycle Safety Advisory Council New Zealand studies that was done into the value of generally just talking about, hey, this is a high risk area, Coromandel sign, next 50 kilometers, high risk for motorcyclists. It's not that effective. I mean, they know the high risk area, but very effective if you've got the individual or very more targeted warning.
Ken, what are your thoughts on hatching areas of an urban roundabout and the risk to motorcyclists of slipping on the line marking?
Yeah, again, it's this sort of balance challenge, isn't it? There's certainly some advantages to it. I like it, and have used similar style treatments. If you can do it, you kind of want to ensure that you're using skid resistance tape or line marking. The challenge is over time that wears down and polishes up and becomes a bit slippery. But I think that roundabouts are a safer area for motorcyclists, not as safe as they are for passenger vehicles for a number of reasons, and surface is one of them. But I still think that it's probably the right thing to do in a lot of circumstances for everybody's safety. Okay, let's talk about strike. Moving along quickly, and Kathy, if you can bring up the Word document and 2 PDFs to be prepared for the explanation, that'd be good. Okay, so motorcyclists tend to go to the outside of the curve when they crash. No prizes given for that, because that's sort of fairly obvious that a rider will go to the outside of a curve. So speaking of the Coromandel, here's a bit of the Coromandel there, outside of a curve, bit of a surface issue, and concrete blocks being used. I only assume as a protection device against the path here, vehicles getting onto the path, but obviously going to be an issue for riders. So we need to think about what we're putting on the outside of curves, and just all the galvanized steel posts we have out there. They're all deemed frangible for a passenger vehicle, but if a motorcyclist hits it, easily enough to kill the motorcyclist. So it's easily strong enough. So you've got to think about where you're placing signs. Do we need both of these signs? Could we do one in the middle, lower the risk? And then maybe on popular motorcycle routes, providing some of those more flexible sign ranges available. They come with maintenance challenges or cost usually, but we've got to think about it. But do you need some of these signs at all, like that one? Would be a question to ask. And here's one of the many sort of low mount products available. You can have a look at that. But as an auditor, you're going to want to know a little bit about, is this a really popular motorcycle route? And so should we be suggesting that, or is it for the low volumes of motorcyclists and we maybe don't need to suggest as much of that because the risk is lower? Thinking about road furniture close to the road, and thinking about the riders leaning and the like. There's a staged photo of a motorcyclist leaning around this curve to show that they lean in there. And of course, in terms of that roadside, we like road safety barriers to protect road users from hazards in the roadside, but obviously they are designed specifically for cars and motorcyclists. So then we can do the underrun protection, the rub rails that are available to stop riders hitting the post. And so you can imagine sliding along at 80 kilometers, 70 kilometers an hour or something, hitting one of the posts, you're going to be in a lot of trouble if you come off the bike. And hitting a rub rail, still not going to be friendly, but going to be friendlier because you slide along it and dissipate your energy over time. And obviously these can be retrofitted to existing W beams, lots of products available. And I think I showed this video in the Safe System Assessment course, which many of you did, but play it again. There's a European crash test motorcycle dummy into barrier, so straight at the post, and between the posts you can see that the underrun protection provides a friendlier outcome, and the post itself, hitting that post, is not a friendly thing whatsoever. And they're at 60 kilometers per hour, not even at the you know what a lot of riders are traveling at on some of the touring routes. Yep, so protection there. Again, as a road safety auditor, thinking about any times that you know, things might be improving safety for one road user could make things worse for another, and trying to highlight those and maybe think of some solutions. So certainly, again, why we don't put the underrun protection on the end terminal, because it's unsure that the end terminal will function correctly if struck. So looking out for those little pieces. The wire rope safety barrier, really generally not a major issue for motorcyclists, even though the motorcyclists will argue. And the reason for that is the positions that the wire rope is used is generally on straights or very light curves. This is probably one of the highest curved ones you really ever see. You can get post padding for these. I don't think that's actually approved for use in New Zealand. I can't remember. Somebody will be able to tell me. But these aren't really, you know, they're going to do something in some crash scenarios, but you're still trying to absorb the energy and dissipate it over a very short period. You know, the football goalpost padding idea is it only works up to a certain point. The ideal would be to redirect energy along. But wire ropes tend to be used in long, generally straight environments, because you can't put a wire rope if you're looking down on it on a sharp radius curve, because you're looking down on it and you tension it up both ends, pops into the middle of the road, bends your posts over if the radius is too much. So 200 minimum, absolute minimum for wire rope systems, radius, 200 radius curve. So on those popular motorcycle touring routes, you're unlikely to see wire rope systems, but we don't have any good solutions or anything better than trying to do the football goalpost padding style. And this one was a job putting a central barrier system. This was probably 10, 15 years ago now, but we were putting out in on the road down to Phillip Island, where the motorcycle Grand Prix is. And it does get a lot of motorcyclists, you know, going to view and watch, and you know, so it's a very popular motorcycle route. And we were putting a central wire rope system in, and the road safety auditor did say that you should or the road safety audit team suggested the use of The stack cushion around the posts. So we did that for 5 kilometres of which cost us an absolute fortune because they were $45 a unit for those. So you can imagine how much that cost. And that's probably fair enough. Now, if I was designing this, every time it would be a back-to-back W, a flexible W beam, back-to-back easy guard with under-arm protection every time. We just that didn't exist back then. And some more examples. Questions, Kathy? And how am I going on time?
Yes, some comments. Wire rope anchor points are problematic.
Or
wire rope legs can be a problem. We have some DCMP systems similar to your post passing.
Oh, yep. Okay. Yeah, the wire rope terminal point, it is problematic on a number of fronts. There was a fatality we looked at involving a motorcyclist hitting that exact end of it, and so some challenges. I don't have great answers for these. You sort of got to think them through each one in their own circumstance. Just a couple of little tips. The rub rail should sit out from the barrier system. Sharp bits and areas where a leg or an arm can get through. Inevitably, the motorcyclist's leg or arm will go through those spots. So trying to fill gaps underneath and think about how a rider would slide along an area. So, these aren't ideal. I'll finish off with speed. So speed, obviously we can influence the speed of riders in a variety of ways, the same way of any other road user, we can influence their speed. But good delineation, the use of chevron alignment markers, trying to give good guidance on what the curve is coming up and how sharp it is, and helping out from that informing perspective. The use of advisory speeds and correct advisory speeds. So undertaking your ball bank indicator runs through and getting that right. The consistency is an important one. Consistency along a route to ensure that a rider doesn't approach 135 advisory and then the next 35 advisory is a sharper curve or something like that. And again, motorcycle specific audits where the audit team has a motorcycle rider with them, and that they ride and talk and give feedback to the audit team, and the audit team's looking as well. It's a nice rounded motorcycle specific one, and that's the kind of thing you'd be doing on your very popular motorcycle routes, on your Coromandel or your, I think what that the other one's called, Big Hill. Can't remember. Anyway, all the routes. And then this is sort of where you see the riders out there with a microphone in the helmet talking to the trailing car with a driver, and then some auditors, and the rider was pointing out something. The auditors were looking at the back of these exposed posts, and you get a nice rounded audit. And of course, we've put in one of these fact sheets on motorcyclists. So there's this one, cyclists, but there is one on motorcyclists in there in your USB. Do I have time for one case study? I think I might have time for one case study. Rumataka Hill, thank you. Errol gets a prize. Oh, fatality yesterday. Jeez. Okay. Yep, that's yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me because it's got all those sort of characteristics of speed and the vulnerability of riders, and then we're continually trying to do things to improve it, but a big challenge. We'll just do one quick case study. Here we go. And I think I've shown quite a few of this one before. It's on the Great Ocean Road. And we see lots of issues here for riders. So we've got debris, gravel, mud on the road. We've got line marking, which allows overtaking and is not well defined. We've got irregular guideposts out there. We've got unprotected barrier systems and end terminals. And so if we can upgrade it, we get a better scenario here of a better surface, no mud, gravel, under protection, barrier connected up, better warning signs of the curve, no overtaking, bit of shoulder. It's better. Maybe we could clear out a bit of vegetation for better sight lines, but it's a fairly good outcome. There's a couple more sort of case study examples, which are in your notes there, if you want to have a look through them. So everybody will be thinking about pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists as they audit, and they will be also thinking about passenger vehicles, of course, and heavy vehicles, which we haven't touched on yet. Now, Kathy, I can see the assignment from the pedestrian one.
Mm-hmm. So that was the picture that you showed last time.
Yeah.
And then I didn't quite get it in the 3 minutes in the session, but that's the after.
Oh, yeah. I forgot we were going to show that. So, yeah, you can see the
Sorry, before.
Yeah, rectification of the crossing. Instead of into that other area, now it goes into the island, and we have I have not heard of any pedestrian incidents at that location, but the issue was removed. Okay, here we go. So we've got your assignment is to do a little bit of auditing, but we're going to let you do it from home, a little practice auditing. And it's in module 3 there. And you'll see down there, we've got the writing road safety audit findings. Click on that. And then you've got 3 documents in there, 1 Word document and 2 PDFs. Now, the first one you can look at, is the Word document. And this is what you'll get. The first page gives you instructions and says you're going to do a road safety audit, or a bit of mock auditing of the design, the functional design, which we've attached as a PDF, of the conversion of an existing roundabout to a set of traffic signals. So that's what you've got there. The other PDF that you've got gives you access to do a site visit, a virtual site visit. And so each of those, I'll show you that in a second, but that's how you're going to get some vision from the site. You're going to look at all of those, and then we're going to ask you to come up with 2 road safety audit findings, only 2. I know some of you are going to want to come up with many, many more. If you really want to, you can, but they're not going to get read. Only 2 are going to be looked at, and your first 2 that you put in. Now, we are going to give you some time to do this, so don't get too concerned. Kathy can talk about that, or we're not. Kathy's giving me the look of nope. Anyway, so you're going to make some recommendations. So write up your audit finding, make some recommendations. If you go down a bit, Kathy, there's the risk matrix. But I've used the New Zealand template. And if you go down a bit further, I've put 1 example in. This is the kind of thing we want to see. This is a completely different intersection, but it just shows you. We want to see you put the risk rating in, so you can see up the top it's moderate. We want explanation, so we want you to sort of label the finding. Explanation, ideally a snip of what you're talking about, the recommendation, categorization of the treatment. Now, in that little box there, you've got to put how you've arrived at your risk. And so they're drop-down menus, but then you don't fill out the design, the response, the safety engineer response, or the like. So go down a little bit, and we've highlighted the bits we want you to fill out. So heading, subheading, write up the issue, recommendation, fill out the risk, and have a look back. And so there's 2 of those to do. Have a look back at module 1, where we did that formula for writing up an audit finding. What's the issue? What's the crash that could happen? What are the factors that increase or decrease the risk? And are there any standards or guidelines to back this up? You know, if they are, great, put them in. If not, it's all good. And the SNP. So the last thing I think there is to, show you we've got the functional design, and this is a genuine design, all right? This is not fabricated for training purposes, genuine design. This is moving forward to be built. So it's not like there are glaring issues. You know, we haven't put in there, you know, a particular thing for you to specifically find. This is genuine, real stuff. And I like doing real ones because that's what you'll be doing as you go about auditing. So have a look at that and see what you can come up with. So it's 3 pages, functional design. And this is your then other sheet. And each of those cameras represents a spot where there's about 2 or 3 minutes of video footage in a 360-degree format. So what you can do is click on that on your phone if you want, and pop your phone into the goggles which we provided. And then as you move your phone around, your head around, it moves the vision around. Now, if you don't want to put it into your goggles, you can just do it on your desktop the way Kathy is, although I'm not sure we're seeing that. Is that playing? Yep. So you can move your head around. So just the movement of your phone will move that around. You can look up, you can look into the sky if you want, and you can have a look at the site, and you've got vision from all these different spots. Remember, you are auditing the design, not the existing conditions, but the reason you want to be able to have a look at the existing conditions is that you've got to think about how this new facility is going to interface with the existing road. You're going to link in what issues there might be as a result. But yeah, have a go with the phone and the goggles and moving your head around. The other little trick on that, Kathy, if you go back to YouTube, there's an important little trick here that will make your whole virtual reality experience far greater, is to, go over to settings, or you're going to do, well, if you do it on your phone, it's going to be full screen anyway. If you go to settings, no, quality, and click on that and go to the top, 2160, right? That is going to make it a really crisp vision like you're there, if your internet's fast enough, which Cassie's may not be at the moment. But it'll crisp it up. And so when you've got your phone and your goggles, highest resolution playback, and you might get a little bit of a feeling like you're there. And we'd be interested to, there we go, sort of playing crisply now. And so you can either do it at your desktop just like this, or you can jump on, have a bit of a play around with the VR goggles. Get your kids to have a look at the site, and it's much safer than being out on site too, isn't it?
Is that what you do, Ken? When you do play it on your phone, a little goggle type icon comes up. So you've got to click on that one. It is a bit of fun. It's a bit of fun, and it's good for our little exercise because you can do it fairly quickly. And we only want 2 issues. Now, you do have it due Friday, do you, Kathy? Love it. Yeah. Wow. Well, I thought it's good that way you can get some feedback, and then people will be going out for their actual site visit after that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is just a bit of practice of writing up audit findings. You know, really think it would be good if you could get to it. We understand life is just crazy hectic. So if you absolutely can't, that's okay. And you can push it to a later point. But you know, it's sort of one of the requirements to complete the course. But yeah, enjoy. We will provide you with some other 360 footage at a later point, just for your entertainment of different road scenarios. But you upload it and off you go. Okay, Kathy, over to you. Research assignments.
Thank you. So I've just popped all of those in here. So all the ones that have been submitted so far. I think, Ken, you've just got another one to mark. But basically they're all in here. So a variety of videos and fact sheets and presentations and that sort of thing. So you can jump in there and have a look at some of the work of your colleagues.
Yeah, that's great.
We only have one, so there is a quiz, but it is just one question because we are giving you lots of other work to do, which is the Wally question. So there's that one there. Just one quiz question this time round.
Okay.
And I will actually, at the moment it's showing up restricted, but what I'll do is I'll change that over because this is your site that you're going to get for next module. So you don't have to worry about it just now, but we have got you a new site, which is different to the Safe System Assessment one that you did last time. So I do want you to have a look at that and let me know if there is any concerns, because again, sometimes people have moved locations or that sort of thing from the address details that we got for you. So I'll unrestrict that shortly and you can jump in there and have a look at the site we've assigned you. We'll talk about it next session, but in the meantime, if you just have a look at the location, that'll be great.
All right. Well, let's see if there's any questions. I think a couple of people won't be able to get that audit done in the time. They've flagged that already. That's okay. You've got lots going on. But yeah, just try and knock it off as soon as you can fit it in. I'm really keen for feedback on the 360 vision and the goggles. So do let us know if you enjoyed it, if you hated it, if it made if you couldn't get it to work. Do let us know how you go. We've certainly had some testing of internal stuff and people have found it pretty good. But yeah. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so the time frame might be a bit too tight, so I do apologise about that. But yes, next week is absolutely fine. All good. I think yeah, we've got 4 minutes left. So there you go. Will it take 4 minutes, people, to write up an audit finding or two, Ken? Maybe not.
Yeah, you might be able to. Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. We made up a bit of time at the end there. Quiz isn't working.
Okay, I'll have a look at that.
All right.
All right. Thank you. See you Friday.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you Friday.